Hello, everyone. First, thank you, Sandeep, for the organization of a fantastic show. I think it's really set up very, very well. You might be tired from lunch, so I decided on we might do some yoga to start with. And I'm kidding, I don't know any yoga. But yeah, I hope you can follow my presentation well. And so I'm going to talk about denim in the year 2030 from a broad perspective. We had very nice talkers before, Kyle talking about AI, Nicholas talking about the circularity, and I will take a more broader approach and try to understand how all things will come together and shape our industry. So before I do that, because most of you know me already, but I'll just give you a brief introduction to myself. I work for various companies mostly in the denim industry. Actually, my first interview, the owner of the company asked me if I was blue-blooded. And I was a quick thinker. I thought, okay, blue indigo. I said yes. And I got a job. Literally the next second, I got a job. He referred me to the HR. And that was my start in the denim industry. My last role I held was at PVH. I was leading the Center of Excellence, where we built a competency team in Hong Kong. Right now I'm at the University of Hagen in Germany, and I'm researching on topics around sustainability, technology, and sustainable transformation. Now, this is a picture of a jeans. It's a raw garment. Can any one of you tell me what year it is from? Any guesses? So this jeans is from 1897. It was designed in 1897. It's a raw garment, so it's a reproduction from Levi's, but it's from 1897. So could it be of today? Could it be of the year 2023? It could, right? You could sell this today with no problems. So what about the year 2030? Will denim garments look the same in the year 2030, or will they be completely different? And that's basically where my talk can finish, because in 2030, garments might just look very, very the same, not much difference, right? You have a 5-pocket jeans, you have a denim as a fabric base. But of course, that's not true, because a lot will have changed by the year 2030. And to understand what will change, we have to understand trends, because change doesn't happen by itself. Change is based on trends. So there's a few trends in society which will impact our industry. And those trends are sustainability, transparency and traceability, and customization. And so we talk quickly about those trends. Sustainability for denim, there's, I think, 4 main topics. One is the microfiber pollution, then there's CO2, then there is circularity and all the topics around circularity, and chemistry. So that means chemical safety. Now, I put this slide up because I want to make everyone aware that it is really not 5 to 12, it's more like 2 minutes to 12. And the reason for that is that a lot of the polluting effects of our industry, they're accumulating. So in the CO2 is a good example. CO2 stays in the atmosphere for around 1,000 years, right? So any CO2 you blow up or you release into the atmosphere, it accumulates. So even you reduce your CO2 emissions, it still accumulates, right? And the same is true for microfiber as well. Microfiber, if it's pollution that is coming from non-biodegradable sources, or that's not biodegradable, accumulates, right? And it accumulates to at a fast speed, because we're releasing around 500,000 tons of microfiber from textiles into the environment every year. Nothing is going away, so it gets more and more. So even if we reduce, and we reduce by 50%, the problem will still get more severe, and it will not get better. So action is needed. decisive action is needed, and it's needed quite quickly. So this is just to point out the problem of microfiber pollution. Microfiber pollution is actually worse than microplastic pollution because of the shape of the microfiber. So in this case, for example, the microfiber, this is a plankton. The microfiber stops the plankton from moving freely and actually has impact on the reproduction of the plankton. Since the plankton is at the bottom of the food chain, right? Fish eat it, and then bigger fish eat that fish. You have less plankton, it will affect the whole food chain and the environment. So governments around the world are recognizing this as a problem. And so just two examples from the OECD, for example, at the bottom, from the microplastic study in 2021, they see, it's here in the middle, that a focus on preventive options early in the life cycle of textiles is likely to deliver pollution mitigation in the most cost-effective manner. And what they mean by options early in the life cycle of textiles, that means they're not talking about recycling solution, they're talking about prevention of microfibers. And of course, the biggest concern is non-biodegradable microfibers. But also the EU in the strategy for sustainable and circular textiles, they make a good point. They mention that a specific source of growing concern is the accuracy of green claims made on using recycled plastic polymers in apparel. So this is all our recycled polyester that we're using. The EU has an eye on it, and it's not a very friendly eye on it. CO2, similar, regulations are stepping up. So there's a proposal for a new law currently in the US that will be then discussed in Congress in April 2023. This is for US-based public companies and foreign companies listed on the US stock markets. And they will be required to, and that's here in the bottom, they will be required to report scope 3 emissions, if material. So now in apparel, as in any manufacturing business or consumer goods manufacturing, scope 3 is material, because most emissions happens in scope 3. So a lot more companies than now will have to report on scope 3 emissions, and then will require to have this data from their suppliers. Same happens around circularity. The regulatory pressure is increasing. And again, the most important quote here is at the bottom from the EU strategy for sustainable and circular textiles, that the Commission will develop binding product-specific eco-design requirements to increase textiles performance in terms of durability, reusability, repairability, fiber-to-fiber recyclability, and mandatory recycled fiber content. And this is going to be coming into effect at 2030. A mandatory recycled fiber content in the EU. Now on the chemical side, there is not so much that I could find in terms of regulations that are coming up. I think what will happen most likely, and we can all hope this is going to happen, is a convergence or a consolidation of different standards globally, both on the MRSL side and on the RSL side. So right now on RSL, you have RSLs from different brands. You have different requirements by jurisdiction, whether that's US, you're shipping to US, or you're shipping to Europe. And it makes it very, very complicated for suppliers and brands. And there should be no reason for to have too many standards. So I think that if we are lucky, a consolidation will happen in that space. Transparency, there's two topics. There's transparency and traceability. There's no transparency without traceability. And also here, regulations are coming and have been in effect already. For example, in December 21, the US Uyghur Forced Labor Prevention Act, which forces US companies to be aware where the cotton is coming from. It's basically avoiding of Xinjiang cotton. But we also have due diligence laws. France was one of the first ones in 2017. In 2022, there was this proposal for the EU. Then there's a Norwegian Transparency Act to be coming into effect this year. And also we have an EU proposal for digital product passport from March 2022. So again here, governments around the globe are taking a lead, and the pressure is increasing on brands. So I put this slide here because I want to be clear that transparency goes across all tiers, and it doesn't, of course, it starts at the raw material, which is the tier 3. It goes all the way through tier 2, the material manufacturing, product manufacturing, distribution, but it doesn't end there. It also goes what we call tier -1, because we ran out of numbers in a way, and that's the end of life. So when the product is at its end of life, you can trace it back to the brand. You can trace all the materials back. That has implications for recycling, but also for textile waste. You can trace textile waste back to the brand. These are a few of the companies that are in this space, and there are many, many more, and a lot of companies that just came up in the last 2 to 3 years. Some of them are in the digital traceability space, and some in the physical. Oricane, for example, with their forensic tracing, or Fiber Trace with the fiber impregnation. So another big trend is customization. And there we have to understand that customization is not just a customized garment. Customization is personalization ultimately, and that extends to a customized, personalized shopping experience. The consultancy Deloitte, they estimated that by 2030, fully customizable apparel could claim 10 to 30% of market share. So this is massive. We are not sure, I'm not sure personally if this is going to come into effect, 10 to 30%, but it is very big. And this is customizable apparel. It's not referring to a personalized shopping experience. The spaces to watch in this context are microfactories that enable much faster production, smaller production, and there we have technology providers like Fashion Enter. We have, of course, companies like Cytex with a factory in LA, Candiani Custom, which is a really, really custom personal tailoring service in Italy. We have automation. There's not much here because, unfortunately, in the textile space, apparel manufacturing space, there's not so much automation happening. Magic mirrors. Style scan, Amazon is with the Lab 126, they're working on a software which is Outfit Vuitton. There's Style Me, Astra Fit. What I find remarkable, that it's predicted that this global virtual fitting room market will grow from 4 billion in last year to 14.8 billion or 14.9 billion by 2029. So that's massive, and that's just the virtual fitting room market. Then we have brands that are on-demand brands like Asphalt from France, Stamp from Japan, and again, technical service providers like Lectra, for example, with the single layer fabric cutting solution. Body scanning, there's a lot happening in this space as well. I put the first body scanner up there, which I don't know any of you remember, that was Levi's IntelliFit. But now there's other companies like Artec 3D. And then there's a personalized shopping experience. Style by Alexa from Amazon, and for example, Stitch Fix. So powering all these transformations is, of course, technology. And now Kyle talked this morning about AI. What he didn't mention was the rapid advancement of AI. So now, currently, this year, AI is trained on 1 billion parameters. That's not 1 billion data points, that's each data point. has 1 trillion parameters. And it was just a few years back, it was 100 million. And then a few years back of that, it was 1 million. Now it's 1 trillion parameters. And what has also happened is the training cost decreased a lot. It's now 0.25 of what it was in 2017, 0.25%, that's 1/400th. So that makes it accessible for anyone. So on the technology side, AI, the big topic, it can be used for forecasting, and brands are already using AI for forecasting. It can be used in fiber development, in spinning, in weaving, in sewing process to increase efficiency of the sewing floor operations, but also in creative processes, like Kel mentioned this morning. With all this talk about AI, we must not forget that also the computing, the hardware side, is advancing rapidly. Quantum computers are not at the stage of proof of concept. There is already quantum computers that you can access via Microsoft or Amazon. But Google plans to make quantum computers commercially available by the year 2029. And applications for quantum computers are especially in the forecasting area. Biotechnology. Biotechnology is, of course, also powered by AI. New fibers, new finishes will come out of this. New finishes, I put a company there because I just found out about them yesterday. This is Biomatter. They're using AI to create new enzymes for a variety of industries. And then there's robotics automation. And this is a little bit a sad story so far. Besides the progress we have in garment finishing with all that Tonello is doing and Ginologia are doing on the actually sewing part, there's unfortunately very little happening. So let's go to the year 2030. And let's start with the consumer. This is my guy. This is Tom. This is Tom and a guy in the year 2030. And on some of his apps, maybe it's on Instagram, he sees this guy. It's an Indian actor. He's wearing a denim jacket. And he would like to buy something very similar. Right now, you would need to shop around between your different shopping apps and manually search. In future, your shopping app will give you different suggestions, and you just pick one of the suggestions. And so my guy Tom, he picks this jacket. What he does next, he clicks on preview, and he can see himself wearing it. Now this is just an image. I generated this image within a minute. The Midjourney bot gave me this image. I just asked him to put this jacket on that guy above. Technology is there, it's evolving, and in future you will have full 3D video. You can see yourself wearing any garment in any setting. But that's not the only thing that will be different. Now, this is Rihanna, and this is a tweet from the year 2030. And she doesn't tweet about the brand, she tweets about a mill. She says, you have to check out Generative Mills. The factory is awesome, and I get the cotton from my favorite farmer. Now, why this wouldn't be possible today is because we don't have transparency, right? So there's a disconnect between consumer and the supply chain. With increased transparency, this barrier will vanish, and influencers will jump on it. So my guy Tom, he sees actually that now this is the garment factory, but he actually sees that the mill is Generative Mills, and he clicks on more info, and he can do a virtual walkthrough the factory. This, of course, is technology that exists today already. You can already give today anyone the ability to walk through your factory and take a look around. So he finally decides to buy the garment, and this is a summary about Tom. So in future, he will have his body scanned. He doesn't need to guess the size that he's going to wear. All products are being digitally created, so the full specs are available. He has his body scanned, his body size. He has a file with his body size, and the AI automatically matches the right garment size to his body. So he doesn't need to care about inputting the size that he wants to buy and then returns it because it doesn't fit. He tries on garments virtually. He doesn't shop only by brand, but he also filters by manufacturer or mill. He says, oh, you know, I heard so many good things about, let's take a mill from here, let's say about sortie fabrics. I want to get a garment, a jeans, made from a sortie fabric. And he will go in his shopping app and he filter by sortie fabrics, and maybe he will get a Calvin Klein jeans that's made by sortie fabric. And another thing is also, he wants something special and he's willing to wait. Waiting times for on-demand manufacturing in 2030 will not be 60 days or 80 days. On-demand manufacturing will be able to provide garments within 35 days or 30 days. So what's happening on the brand side? First, and I think this is massive, we have an avoidance of overproduction. That's a key problem that brands have to tackle. We have around 40% of all garments that are on the market or that are being produced that are actually never sold. That's 40% overproduction. Now imagine the cost, imagine the money that's lost there. It's cost for the brand, but then also there's regulatory pressure. In France now it's already illegal to destroy new garments. So brands need to avoid overproduction. How can they avoid it? And how will they avoid it in the year 2030? First, the forecasting will have massively improved through AI. They will be able to have much more advanced product testing through test and chase programs enabled by microfactories. You produce a small quantity, let's say 300 pieces in your microfactory, you put it on the market, you see how it sells. If it sells well, you produce a larger quantity than maybe in Vietnam or in China or in Pakistan. You will have programs, brands will have programs with on-demand manufacturing. So you don't manufacture and then hope that it sells. You collect orders, then you manufacture. And brands will be available for whatever happens to the garments at the end of life. We can see that maybe by 2030 we will have a regulation in the apparel industry similar to electronics industry. That means the retail has to take garments back. If it's from their brand, they have to take it back, or they have to nominate a third-party supplier that takes garments back for them, then to be put into the recycling loop. And with all these, with all the pressure, regulatory pressure, sustainability targets will become part of KPIs. You would be surprised that now in many brand companies, at many brands, sustainability is not yet part of a KPI. And without sustainability being part of a KPI for everyone from buyer, designer, to sourcing responsible, people responsible in sourcing, to leadership, there will not be any changes. And I will come to that later, but a big change, of course, is digital product creation. There's so much efficiency and speed gains that are possible, and also transparency in processes that are possible through digital product creation. And that means really digital product creation first. You start with a digital product. Kyle, he's already working in that space with his AI to translate a visual appearance to a laser file. But there's a lot more that is possible in that space. And of course, For brands, what has to change is they have to make their whole supply chain transparent. Now, this is an example of what some of you might recognize the interface. This is Flow 3D, and this is a digital garment. And this is all that is possible with a digital garment process. So the benefits are clear. You have one version of the truth. You go from chaos to order, because everything goes back to your digital twin and your data that is connected to the digital twin. You have real-time changes, right? Anyone who's authorized to go in there, make a change, or make a change on their end, it will all go back to this one source of truth. You will have new workflows, and there will be upstream and downstream integration. There's a lot of examples here. So for example, in future, in 2030, it's very possible that you make a change on your digital twin. You change, let's say, the wash level. You change the dry processing. You automatically, the laser file will be changed. So the manufacturer has in real time a new laser file. Finishing machines, the wash recipe will be changed automatically. So that means you have a lighter color. Then the wash recipe will adjust it. A sustainability score will be updated automatically. And so all this now is done manually and by one-to-one communication between one department and the other, and it goes back and forth, and it takes a lot of time. In future, this no one will have the time for that. Now, for manufacturer, what will change for them? So, you know, this is a company, NEFA, and they say this is the future of fashion manufacturing, and this is what we will do. And I don't believe it, and I think anyone in this room doesn't believe it. We are simply not able to use robotics in digital twin, and the manufacturers will be much more deeply integrated with processes that happen at the brand level. And then there will be efficiency and speed gains through AI processes. So there's already AI that is being used in cutting, for example, to optimize markers, which is a very complex problem. So that's why you need AI to optimize markers. But there's also AI that can increase your efficiency on the sewing floor, either by planning the layout, or by via image recognition, and then to immediately detect bottlenecks, for example. Now, manufacturers will also be visible to the consumer, but they might also be promoted by influencers and being asked for by consumers. And bottom line, manufacturing will become much faster. It'll become much more sustainable because it has to. But also manufacturers have a chance to become a brand. Not only in B2B, a brand in B2B, but actually a brand consumer-facing. And then, of course, here I just highlight the part on the right side. It's everything where the digital product creation impacts manufacturing. Pattern, marker, material, sewing, finishing, and then, of course, the leadership in the factory also has access to data. Now, finally, going back to that product, to the jeans. So, how is it different in 2030? First, we will have very different material. We will only have biodegradable fibers, so goodbye polyester. There's no need to have polyester in denim garments, absolutely not. There will be a minimum of 98 cellulose-based fibers. There will be at least 50% recycled content. We can be very sure about this. Most likely no leather. There's lots of alternatives available, no reason to use leather. And for example, they might have dissolvable threads to make recycling much, much easier. That garment will be fully traceable. All the materials will be fully traceable. It will all be blockchain enabled. Blockchain is not something that's far away. Blockchain is already used in so many applications. And this data about the garment will be all visible to the consumer, or most of it will be visible to the consumer. Each garment will have a digital twin. There will be only one version of the truth, which is a digital twin. It will be used for many purposes. It will be used by the brand in marketing material, but also in manufacturing. And it might also be used by the consumer. I didn't put one trend up here because it's not a very popular trend at the moment, which is the metaverse. Ever since Facebook face planted with their metaverse, it's kind of out of fashion. But the metaverse is a multi-billion-dollar market right now already, and it will become a much bigger market in future. So your digital twin that you're now using on the brand side, this exact same digital twin might be used then by the consumer in metaverse to wear the garment in the metaverse. And most importantly, these jeans will be wanted. A lot of jeans we produce now is not wanted. No one wants it. So much overproduction. We produce it, we push it on the market, we hope people buy it, and people don't buy it. They only buy part of it, but most ends up somewhere in landfills, right? Gets shredded. If anything, it might get recycled. That's the best possible outcome now. But in future, it will be wanted. It will be produced with a much more accurate forecast, and there will be a much more personal connection between the brand, the garment, and then the consumer. And that's the end of my presentation. Thank you very much.